Now, we've already actually seen earlier on in the course, I think back in chapter 3, that we can use template refs to store references to DOM elements in our template, like this paragraph tag. Now, the way we use refs inside the composition API using the setup method is slightly different. So whereas before we could say something like this, we'd say this to reference the component, dot $refs, and then dot whatever the ref was, we can't do this inside the setup method. And that's because the this keyword is not available inside the setup. Now, when we used it inside a lifecycle hook like mounted or in a method before when we used the options API, it referred to the component itself, the this keyword, but it's just undefined in the setup function. So let me demo this. I'm going to console.log and then log out this. Save it and preview, and we can see that this is undefined. So the way that we work with refs in the composition API using the setup function is a bit different. So the first thing we'll do is come to the setup function and we're going to create a new ref. Now you can call this ref what you want. I'm just going to call it P and we store it in a constant. And the reason I'm calling it P is because we're going to grab a reference to this paragraph tag. But again, it doesn't matter what it's called. You can call it para or something else. Now I'm going to set that equal to ref. Now if I click on this right here, it should auto import ref from view. And this is generally the way that we work with the composition API. We import the parts from view that we need to use, like refs. And we're going to see more of this pattern as we go on. So we're saying right here that this is a ref. And to begin with, we can assign it a value of null. So we have a ref right here, but it's not linked up to this. So what we need to do is return this ref right here. So I'll just return P like so. And then like we did before, we can give this a ref attribute and set it equal to whatever ref inside the setup function that we created. So in our case, P. So now what will happen is this will be a reference to this paragraph tag. And now what I'll do is log this to the console when we click on this button. So instead of logging this now, I'm going to log out P. So let's see if this worked. I'm going to save this and come over here and I'm going to click this button and now we can see this big object. And this is a ref object. Now we can see right here, the value property right here, that is the actual DOM elements. This is just a wrap object, which is a reference object. So what I'm going to do is also output the value property, p.value like that, and that should be the actual value. So if we press click me, in fact, I'll get rid of this, click me, and now we can see this is the value. That is the template element. So what I can do is take that value now, and I can do things like add a class to it. I can use normal JavaScript properties or JavaScript methods on it. So what I'm going to do is say p.value to get that DOM element. Then I'm going to say .classList, which is a normal JavaScript property to get the list of classes. And then I'm going to use the add method to add a class to that paragraph. And I'll just say test. So if I now click this, then it's going to add a class to this paragraph tag. So let me get rid of this down here and we can see it has that class of test. Now we can also do things like change the text content of a ref. So I'm going to say p.value down here and then use the text content property and set it equal to hello ninjas. So now what will happen is it will replace all of this with hello ninjas. So if we save it and preview over here, I'm going to go to click me and we see it replaces all of that content. Now there is one thing you need to be careful about, and that is that you cannot use the value of this before we actually return it. Well, you can use the value of it, but it's not going to be this DOM element because before we return it right here, we've not been able to associate it with this DOM element. So the value property is just going to be null. And by the way, that's how we get this value right here. We can say console.log, and if it was just p, it would still be a reference object. It wouldn't be null. But if we console.log p and p.value, this is the reference object. This would be still null. It wouldn't be this thing right here because, like I said, we've not yet returned this p value down here, and because we've not returned it, we've not associated it with this DOM element. So this will be null. So we can't use it to do things like this down here. We can right here inside handle click, because once we've clicked this thing, we've already returned it at that point, right? Because the setup function's run, it's returned it to the DOM, we've output the button, then we've clicked it. So at that point, we do have p.value. Hope that makes sense, but let's just see what this does right here. I'm going to save it and go over to the console, and we can see this is the p object right here, and that's the reference, and this right here is null. That's the value. So that's this thing right here, which is null. If I was to put in here something like hello, then p.value would be hello, and I'll show you that. And we can see right here, hello. Okay, so that is template refs when we're using the composition API. A bit different to using them in the options API. Now, to be honest, I rarely use template refs at all, because I feel like everything I need to do in terms of manipulating DOM content can be done in other ways using Vue. However, refs like this have another very important part to play when using the composition API. They can be used to make values like this reactive, and we'll see that next.